everybody. We are in the book of Judges now in our Search the Scriptures study, and we are on study number 1 today, which covers chapter number 1, beginning with the very first verse and going through chapter 2 and verse number 5. So you might want to get a Bible out and open it up to the book of Judges, chapter number 1. And we're going to try to cover 3 different questions today. The first one, Judah began well. Why did they fail to complete their task? And ought their advance to have been checked by chariots of iron? So as we read through the passage, this passage is a little bit complicated, a lot of words of different nations and things like that. But as we read through this, kind of notice notice what goes on is in terms of their success and everything that help you in answering this question. Second, notice the general movement from south to north in chapter 1. And can you document a corresponding deterioration in the situation as the chapter progresses? So if you see that as we read along. And verse number 3, what charge did the angel of the Lord bring against Israel? And this is at the beginning of chapter 2, I believe. And what were the consequences of their failure? And what can we learn from this concerning the folly of compromise? Okay, let's look at Judges chapter number 1, beginning with the first verse, and get ready for some weird names of places and people. Verse number 1. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, who will be the first to go up and fight for us against the Canaanites? Just to preface this before we go on any farther, Joshua has died now. At this point, the book of Judges is setting Joshua aside now, and what's going to happen the rest of the way with the nation of Israel without Joshua at leadership. Who will be the first to go up and fight for us against the Canaanites? And the Lord answered, Judah is to go. I have given the land into their hands. And then the men of Judah said to the Simeonites, their brothers, come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites, and we in turn will go with you into yours. So the Simeonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adoni-Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Ouch. Verse 7, then Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it, and they put the city to the sword and set it on fire. And after that the men of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the western foothills, and they advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath Arba, and defeated Shishai, Ahiman, and Talmai. And from there they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sefer. And Caleb said, I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sefer. And Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Aksah to him in marriage. So this would be an uncle receiving in marriage his niece. Verse 14, one day when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, what can I do for you? And she replied, do me a special favor. Since you've given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water. And then Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of palms with the men of Judah to live among the people of the desert of Judah in the Negev near Arad. And then the men of Judah went with the Simeonites, their brothers, and attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath. And they totally destroyed the city. Therefore it is called Hormah. And the men of Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. I can see it seems like they're having pretty good success so far. Verse 19, the Lord was with the men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had iron chariots. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, failed to dislodge the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem, and to this day the Jebusites live there with the Benjamites. Now the house of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. And when they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well." So they showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family. He then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Bethshan, or Taanach, or Dor, or Iblaim, or Megiddo, and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but they never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Nahalol, who remained among them, but they did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Akko, or Sidon, or Ahlab, or Akzib, or Helba, or Aphek, or Rehob. And because of this, the people of Asher lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land. And neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Beth-Shemesh, or Bethanath, but the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth-Shemesh and Bethanath became forced laborers for them. And the Amorites confined with the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plain, and the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres, Ajalon and Shalbim. But when the power of the house of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor, and the boundary of the Amorites was from Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond. Judges chapter 2. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim, and said, "I brought you up out of Egypt, and led you into the land that I swore to give to your forefathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? Now therefore I tell you that I will not drive them out before you. They will be thorns in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you." When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called the place Bochim, and there they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Well, Judah began well, question number 1, but why did they fail to complete their task, and ought their advance to have been checked by chariots of iron? Well, the Lord doesn't give us orders without giving us the ability to carry them out. Judah should not have stopped its conquest just because somebody had iron chariots. The command to conquer would have been possible. Yeah, it may have required a miracle from God, but it would have been possible. God would have provided the miracle. Too often we hold back because the natural circumstances dictate our action rather than the supernatural. Second question. Notice the general movement from south to north in chapter 1, and can you document a corresponding deterioration in the situation as the chapter progresses? Well, the farther they advance, the less successful they were. This was due to their acceptance of less than complete success each step along the way. The more often we settle for less than everything that God has to offer, the more likely we will be to settle for less in the future. So the seeds of complacency and the seeds of mediocrity that we sow will be reaped 100-fold every step of the way. So we need to strive for complete success and doing the very best that we can. Third question, what charge did the angel of the Lord bring against Israel, and what were the consequences of their failure, and what can we learn from this concerning the folly of compromise? Well, the angel of the Lord leveled the charge of disobedience against Israel. for their failure to completely conquer the land. Israel settled for less than what God had to offer. And this is definitely the number one sin of the church today. We've settled for mediocrity, and we run the risk, therefore, of being vomited out of the mouth of God for our lukewarmness, as it talks about in the book of Revelation. Hope this study has been a blessing to you as we begin the book of Judges. Look forward to you being here next time for the rest of Judges chapter number 2. God bless. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.